The Mediterranean Sea stretches out under the glorious light of dawn. As deep blue waves gently roll over the faded wooden hulls of fishermen in Andalusia, Spain. In the damp chill of the night, men with sunburned skin and calloused hands begin a long day of work in the hope of hauling thousands of fresh tuna onto deck. No modern machinery. No roar of industrial engines. Just sturdy lines. Traditional skills and skilled hands. They are maintaining one of the oldest and most amazing forms of fishing still in existence in Europe. Spanish mackerel, also known as Scombacolius, is a famously migratory fish, mainly living in the warm waters of the Atlantic and Mediterranean. With their long, silvery blue bodies sparkling in the sunlight, they swim in schools of millions. Creating waves of living darkness that move endlessly in the deep sea. When spring comes and the seawater warms up, schools of mackerel begin to flock to the shore to spawn, the golden moment that experienced fishermen await. Unlike the bustling industrial fishing boats using purse seines or trawls, traditional small boats in Spain choose a more intimate, more authentic approach. Handline fishing. The image of dozens of men standing in rows along the side of the boat, each holding a reel of fishing line wrapped around their hands. Their eyes focused. Their reflexes like lightning every time the line vibrates, is a wonderful symphony between man and the sea. The fishing line has no rod, no pulley, just a meter-long durable nylon thread, at the end of which is a sharp hook with a shiny fake bait attached. Fishermen throw the line into the water, gently control the lure in a natural motion, then suddenly jerk their hand when they feel the pull from below. A tuna has taken the bait. Without much force, just with skillful technique, they pull the fish up with their own arms, toss it onto the deck, then quickly drop the line back into the water again, without stopping. On lucky days, schools of tuna flock densely under the boat. Each person can catch 5 to 6 fish per minute. The entire deck quickly turns into a sparkling silver sea. Fish flapping, water splashing, cheers ringing out when a big fish suddenly takes the bait, causing the line to stretch like a guitar string. That feeling, the feeling of facing the force of nature directly, feeling each jerk, each beat from the bottom of the sea transmitted to the arm, is what makes fishermen never give up the traditional hand fishing profession. They say, machines can catch more fish, but they can't give you the feeling of victory like pulling a live mackerel out of the sea with your own hands. Behind every strong jerk is a story of ingenuity and a lifetime of experience. Not everyone can tell which is a real bite and which is a fake movement of the water. There are young anglers who lose their bait and the fish dive out of sight because they jerk the line too early. But experienced people only need a slight shake to know for sure there is a fish. The timing of the jerk is as precise as if they were communicating with the water itself. They know how to tie the bait properly, know which water currents are where the fish pass, and even recognize the color of the sea surface to predict the depth of the mackerel school below. During peak season, each boat can catch thousands of fish in just a few hours, each weighing from 1 to 3 kilograms, with firm flesh, metallic skin, and eyes still sparkling as if they had just been fished from another world. These mackerels are not only the pride of fishermen but also a valuable delicacy in local fish markets, luxury restaurants and export processing factories. Grilled mackerel with salt and pepper. Mackerel marinated in olive oil or dried mackerel hung in the sun have become part of Mediterranean culinary culture. Sometimes, the sea is rough, The wind blows in gusts, causing the fishing lines to hit the side of the boat. The men still do not let go, still staring down at the murky grey water, as if just a moment of distraction and the school of fish will slip away from their grasp. They understand that to survive in this fishing profession, it takes more than strength, passion and perseverance. When the sun began to set in the west, the sky glowed orange and yellow. The deck was full of fish. They began to clean, wash each fish, and neatly arrange them in ice boxes, preparing for the return journey. On the way back, some fell asleep from exhaustion. Some laughed and talked about their classic fishing shots. And some sat quietly looking at the sea as if silently thanking the ocean for giving them a bountiful day. As the ship began to dock at sunset, the western sky was dyed red, the last rays of the day shining down, making the hundreds of tuna on the deck shine silver like precious metals. The small harbor nestled between two familiar rocks became bustling again. Men and women stood waiting on the wooden bridge, their eyes following every movement of the boats that had just returned after a long day of struggling with the sea. The ship's whistle blew softly as a greeting, and then, one by one, the skilled fishermen began to pass the full crates of fish down to the port. Each shoulder lifted firmly, each step sure on the wooden bridge wet with sweat and sea water. As soon as the first batches of fish were dumped on the ground, the surrounding atmosphere immediately became excited. The pungent smell of salt and fresh fish mingles with the bustling sounds of fishmongers, restaurant chefs, and factory workers standing, jostling among the blood-stained water on the floor. Each mackerel is carefully selected. Its size, the color of its scales, the firmness of its flesh. The fishermen don't need to say much. Just nods, slight smiles, and respect for those who know the value of each fish they've just caught by hand. At the coastal fish markets, traders will sort on the spot, grade A mackerel, straight body, shiny scales, clear eyes, even weight, will be shipped straight to upscale restaurants in Seville, Barcelona, or even airlifted to France, Italy. Grade B fish will be taken to factories near the port to be filleted, canned, or processed into mackerel in olive oil, a delicacy loved around the world. Smaller ones, or those with minor injuries from fishing, are sold at the local market, where people line up to buy them by the kilo to make traditional dishes such as grilled mackerel, mackerel with tomato sauce, or dried salted mackerel. In a small corner of the harbor, the children of fishermen, sit playing with old fishing lines, imitating the action of throwing the line, jerking it and shouting as if they had just caught a real fish. Old people, with white hair and faces weathered by the sea wind, sit drinking red wine and recounting the legendary fishing seasons of the past, when schools of mackerel came in as thick as clouds, making the water tremble. And in just one morning the boat was so full of fish that some had to be thrown into the water for fear of sinking. After the fish are all unloaded, the fishermen begin to clean the boat. The fishing lines are removed, washed with clean water, and hung on the deck to dry naturally in the afternoon sun. The bait is checked, tied anew, and bent or broken hooks are removed. Each boat, no matter how simple and old, is a loyal companion of the fishermen, cared for by them as if they were their own bodies. Inside the boat, the ice chest is replaced, the small engine is oiled, everything is meticulously prepared for the next trip. Because just a few hours later, when the sky is not yet fully light, they will leave the dock again, once again going out to sea. once again casting the line, and once again facing the endless vastness of the ocean. Although the life of a hand fisherman is not easy, with sleepless nights, days of rough waves, times returning empty-handed, none of them intend to give up. Because for them, each tuna is not only an income, but also proof of patience, strength and love for the ocean. The fishing line is not just a tool, but a bridge between people and the sea. Between tradition and the present. Between the previous generation and the next generation. And so, day after day, month after month, the Spanish fishermen continue their work with their hands, their lines, and their passion. Every morning, they leave the dock before dawn, silently cutting through the waves towards the horizon, carrying with them the hope of a day of generosity on the ocean. And then, when the sun rises again, thousands of tuna are pulled onto the deck, amid the heavy breathing, the rustling of tails, and the hearty laughter of those who know they are doing the right thing, being true to the sea, true to themselves. Absolutely breathtaking. That's how people often describe the sight of Spanish fishermen catching thousands of mackerel by hand using only fishing lines and human skills. In an era where machines and technology dominate every corner of the fishing industry, somewhere in the Mediterranean and Atlantic Oceans there still exists a community that lives more slowly, more authentically, and lives in harmony with nature every hour, every minute. They don't need giant ships, no massive mechanical nets, but only strong hands, sharp eyes, and traditional experience to be able to conquer large schools of fish moving constantly in the deep sea. Spanish mackerel, a fish that is both agile and intelligent, has become a symbol of the connection between humans and the sea. They are not only an important food source, a popular commercial product, but also a hunting friend of fishermen, a worthy opponent and a source of pride every time they are caught. In the shimmering light of dusk or the first rays of dawn, each mackerel is pulled from the water as a result of patience, skill and indomitable spirit. It is not a simple fishing trip, it is an ancient ritual that is repeated every day, carrying both sacredness and pride. None of these fishermen ever thought of quitting their job, despite the harsh weather. The rough seas, the sometimes difficult life, because once attached to the fishing line, to the boat, to the blue of the sea, they cannot leave. They know that somewhere in the middle of the ocean, the mackerel are still swimming, still waiting for a timely jerk from the experienced hands of brave men. Today, when the world changes every hour, when technology reaches even the farthest corners of the ocean, the European technique of catching mackerel by hand still exists, like a small but smoldering, persistent flame. It is not just a fishing method, it is a part of culture, a part of history, and above all, the soul of the sea. Just imagine, in the middle of the vast ocean, a man with a small line in his hand can pull up thousands of fish, just by his own strength and harmony with nature. That is truly extraordinary. And then, no matter how much time passes, no matter how many generations pass, people will still talk about those sunny mornings in the Spanish fishing port, where men cast their lines towards the sea with eyes as bright as stars, where silvery mackerel jump onto the deck like living arrows, and where the love for the sea continues to be written, not in words, but in actions, day after day. As night fell, the fishing port grew quiet again. The boats lay still on the water, their kerosene lamps flickering with an old yellow light that illuminated the folded sails, which were streaked with dried salt. The smell of fish, wet wood, and the sea permeated the clothes, the hair, the ropes hanging from the sides of the boats, as if this were another world. A space where time passed more slowly and the story continued even when no one spoke. On a small boat moored near the port's bow, an old man with calloused hands carefully unhooked the last hook from the nylon line. He did it slowly, like a ritual before the day ended. Beside him, his 10-year-old grandson dozed, clutching a tangled spool of fishing line, the thing he had tried to learn to use that morning. He looked at it with gentle eyes, placed a thin blanket on its shoulder, then sat quietly, looking out to the distant sea, where tonight, the mackerel continued to swim. As they had for millions of years before humans appeared. The sea at night was beautiful in a different way, not bright, not noisy, but deep and full of mystery. The stars above reflected on the water, blending with the moonlight to create a faint silver strip stretching to the horizon. The old fisherman sighed, but not because he was tired. It was the sigh of someone who understood that he was only a small part of the vast life cycle of the ocean, and that everything he had done, was contributing to keeping that tradition from fading away. Tomorrow, his children and grandchildren would go out to sea again. Maybe they would learn to use machines. Maybe they would use GPS to locate the fish. Maybe they would use large nets and cold storage instead of hand lines. But if they still have memories of tonight, of the oil lamps, of the smell of the sea, of his storytelling voice, then the tradition has not disappeared. The tuna will still come in season. The hands will still pull the lines in the cold morning. And the dry laughter of exhaustion will still ring out when the last catch is pulled up. Because even though everything else has changed, the ocean remains the same, vast, challenging, and always open to those who know how to live with it with patience and sincerity. In the end, it is not the number of fish caught, not the depth of the sea or the length of the line that makes a fisherman. It is the spirit. It is the resilience. It is the ability to accept loss and hope in the midst of storms. It is the fact that one still leaves the dock at dawn, knowing that there may be no fish today, sitting by the light of an oil lamp, recounting his journey, so that future generations will know that there was a time when all one needed was a pair of hands and a fishing line, enough to live with the ocean. In the memories of children growing up on the Andalusian coast, the image of their father or grandfather leaning over the side of a boat, fishing line in hand, eyes following every movement under the deep blue water, is always the most sacred symbol. It is not just a scene of work, but the figure of a guardian of the profession, a guardian of faith, a guardian of the fragile bond between man and nature. On chilly mornings, when the wind howls strongly against the coastal cliffs, the fathers still set sail, leaving behind the dim yellow light from the small wooden house where their children are still sleeping. From the deck of the ship looking towards the mainland, the lights twinkle like stars. But from the mainland looking out to sea, the silhouettes of the boats in the mist are the real light, the light of courage and perseverance. The silvery mackerel, when pulled up one by one, are more than just food. They are the result of generations of people choosing to live in harmony with the sea instead of forcing it. Every scratch on the hand, every piece of calloused skin, is a mark of time. A living proof of an ancient philosophy of life. What is pulled up by hand, by sweat, is always more valuable than what is obtained by machine power. And then when the mackerel school returns, the whole sea is filled with the sound of splashing water. The deck resounds with the sound of fish splashing. The fishing lines are constantly stretched like a ringing guitar string. The fishermen who are no longer young scream with excitement, like children seeing a rainbow for the first time. The young men fumble with the lines. Sometimes their hands are pulled by the fish, but they still laugh loudly because they have felt the first tug. No one thinks about being tired. No one thinks about time. There is only the rhythm of the fishing line, the sound of fish, the sound of people, and the oldest sound of all, the call of the ocean.